Hello and welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Talk podcast, your look at commercial real estate news and events. Today, we're going to discuss the Miami commercial real estate office market in detail. We're approaching the end of July, very quickly the end of the third quarter. And folks, it's the fourth quarter historically where a lot of transaction and leasing volume takes place in the Miami market. And in my opinion, 2025 is maybe going to be a record quarter. I think we're poised for a very strong end to 2025. By the way, I'm your host, George Morales. I run a commercial real estate firm in South Florida, boutique independent commercial advisory services on behalf of tenants and landlords and property investors. BlueBoxRE.com is how to get a hold of us and schedule an offline meeting. This podcast is a resource of our YouTube channel and our podcast on commercial real estate. We've got a plethora of shorts informing the community about commercial real estate terms and lingo, so please check us out and give us a thumbs up and subscribe if you find value in this podcast form. So without further ado, where are we going today? We're going to take a look at the Miami Class A office market stats, several of the key markets, not all of them. To get that, you're going to have to reach out to us, Jorge.Morales at BlueBoxRE.com. We're going to look at a few office towers that are planned, slated, under construction, both in the resi, hotel, condo, and also office environment. Listen, look at the Miami skyline. I hear this all the time from folks who visit Miami after 5 or 10 years, and each time they're shocked at the skyline. They hardly recognize it. You ain't seen nothing yet. We've got a lot more coming. Air taxi coming to Miami. You look at these 80 plus towers, and yeah, it makes total sense that we're ready for air taxi. And then we look at the Miami ports. A recent article talks about the impact of the Miami airport and the seaport to the local economy. That's where we're heading. So without further ado, here are some of the stats. Now, this is brought to us by the South Florida Business Journal, and their source is Cushman & Wakefield. So hats off to you, national firm Cushman & Wakefield, for putting this together. And I'm sure at some point CoStar deserves some credit as well. But this is what we have right now. This is Class A averages. Brickell Avenue's at $107.86. Let me really dive into this number, because this is like saying a luxury car cost $100,000, right? Well, that includes a Lexus and an Acura, and maybe low-end BMW and Mercedes that you can get under $100,000. But listen, the luxury market for cars can go all the way to a Malbec, can go to a Bentley, can go to a Rolls Royce, and expect to spend over $250,000 or more for those. Well, Brickell's kind of like that. Show me where you can get $107.86 a square foot. And it's going to be the older, lower class A buildings. And these are the buildings that were built in the 80s and 90s and maybe early 2000s. But to get quality Class A space like 830 Brickell Plaza, the last building that was built, they topped off at $200 a square foot. You want to get a bay view at 801 Brickell or 701 Brickell, you're going to be north of $160 to $180 a square foot. So saying that the average rate is $107.86 a Brickell, it is true, it's factual, but there's a huge story. You really need to link up with a commercial real estate advisor, tenant rep advisor. If you're going to touch the Brickell Avenue market, it's important to know where your value is. But look, these are the stats. It's the highest high water mark for Class A space in the market. The next is the Biscayne Boulevard Wynwood Design District. This is everything north of downtown, all the way up to about 54th Street, hugging Biscayne Boulevard to 95. You see these buildings, you've seen them go up. There's a ton of vacancy still. They're over 30%. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But their rates are $87.19. That's primarily because most of the buildings are brand new. And this is where I want to say Amazon decided to call home. And some of the cruise line industries have also looked at this market. So this is an emerging market that's here. They're averaging $87.19. Miami Beach, very small market, not a lot of space, probably under $1.5 million for Class A space. Starwood built their headquarters there. $78.95. So expect to pay about $80 a foot if you're looking for space in the Miami Beach market. Coconut Grove, another tiny little market with some new product, $74, $75 a square foot. Then downtown Miami, just around $70 a square foot for Class A space. Now the list stops here in the South Florida Business Journal. If we went to Coral Gables, expect to be at $58 to $60 a square foot for Class A. In my opinion, the best value for Class A space, and that is proof in the pudding is that they've had the highest leasing activity year to date. There is an outflow of Brickell Avenue. There are tenants. I've had clients who've been in Brickell for 20, 30 years, and they just got priced out. They don't need to pay $150, $107 when they can save 50% rent cost by going to another quality Class A space in Coral Gables, which is 4.5 miles west. For those of you who are not familiar with the Miami market, I have a little saying: the closer you are to the Bay, the more office rent you will pay. And if you see the top 5 highest rent districts for commercial office space in Miami all happen to hug Biscayne Bay: Brickell, Wynwood, Miami Beach, Coconut Grove, downtown. The further west you go in Miami, you start getting price breaks. Coral Gables, then you go further west and you hit the Miami Airport West Market, Kendall Market, Miami Lakes, and that's where you really start seeing the rents come down. So these are the Class A rates. Let me talk to you about vacancy. So we talked about Biscayne Boulevard, Wynwood. They've got the highest vacancy. They still have over 30% vacancy. Now, why is that? Because it's a new market. In the last, I'd say, 10 years, the market exploded. At one point, they were over 50, 60% because you had these brand new buildings vacant. But they're starting to fill up. So 30%, believe it or not, is a step forward. Downtown Miami is just under 20%. That's where you're going to get value if you're looking to be in the CBD. For those of you who don't know, the Miami River separates downtown Miami from the Brickell Avenue market. So as soon as you cross that bridge, north or south, you're in one or two markets. That bridge might as well be a county line because there are some tenants who will not cross that bridge either way. If you live south of the Miami River, you don't want to be in downtown. If you live north of the Miami River, you don't want to be in Brickell. And usually what we find every 10 years, there's a cycle of the big law firms, the big financial firms, where they chase the best deals. So when Brickell gets hot and very expensive, maybe it'll be a Holland & Knight, maybe it'll be a Bank of America or a Chase or a Bills & Sundberg or Greenberg Traurig. They may use this other market downtown to negotiate against Brickell or vice versa, and they'll chase the best deal and flip-flop. So that's usually what happens in the Miami market. Miami Airport West, we didn't talk about that. We don't have their stats, but their vacancy rate's about 16.4% for Class A. Class A rates right now are averaging just under $50 a square foot. It's a triple net market, so expect that to be anywhere from 35 to 40, 42 triple net, with expenses ranging in $10 to $13, maybe $14 a square foot range. Airport West, free parking, lots of it, surface level, big floor plates, so you've got your corporate hubs are all located. Airport West. Coral Gables, Class A, 14.6. Now, this was over 20% maybe a year ago, but we had Apple and others take Class A space in the Plaza, a brand new development, over 300,000 feet of Class A space, but they're leasing up nicely. Columbus Center sold recently, and they signed a large deal, so they gobbled up a large block of Class A space at One Alhambra Plaza. So you've got buildings have traded in that market, and you've got a lot of stabilization, and it's only up and up. This is the time to take advantage of Coral Gables. This is the time because vacancy continues to compress. As vacancy compresses, rental rates are going to go up. Look at the spread between Brickell Avenue at $107 and $60 a square foot in Coral Gables. It's never been that high. 40% savings. It's usually 20 to 25%. That means my prediction is a year from now, Coral Gables will be closer to 70 and maybe going upwards. So please, if you're a tenant in Coral Gables, let's speak. Let's have conversations because this is the time to take advantage and lock in maybe a 5 or 10 year deal because there's no new construction for Coral Gables to speak of. UPS is going to a new location in Southern Gables, but they're pretty much anchoring an 80,000 foot building. So there's not going to be any supply to really diminish and give rent relief to tenants. So now's the time to start talking to your landlords and extending those leases and finding the best space options for you if you want to be in Coral Gables. If not, you're going to be looking at Waterford, but at Waterford, you're only going to be saving $10 a foot. You're going to be at 50. Now, granted, parking is free, but even Waterford is starting to compress. Miami Beach, 13.9% vacancy. Brickell, 15% for Class A space. And I had this conversation with a great broker friend of mine. And why is it 15%? Why are rates so high, but we're at 15% vacancy? Listen, the 15% that's vacant is kind of like the bottom end of space available. You're not going to find full floors on Brickell anymore. You're not going to find bay views. And so that $107, $108, $150 a square foot is probably lower floors, city views, or maybe views that are blocked by an apartment or another building. And so I think 15%, maybe we inch into 12, 13 a year from now, but you're really not going to see major movement until we get these new towers that we're going to talk about next. So listen, that's just a quick fire hose review of the Miami market. If you want to get information on any of these markets that we discussed, I have full reports that I can forward to you, and just leave us a note, a comment. You can find a way to contact us, and we're happy to come on over or send you a report via email, free of charge, okay? No obligations. We just want to help the community. So that is the state of the Miami market, and as you can see, these rates, folks, these rates are just, for those of us who've been in the market, I've been in this market since the 90s. I remember leasing Class A rates on Brickell for $48 a foot. Then the Great Recession hit, and we were glad to do $34 and $35 a square foot. And so to see where the rates are now is pretty shocking, and really indicates that Miami is a global city and Miami has arrived. It's not that we're emerging. It's not that we're on the radar. It's that we're there. We're there. And depending on what happens in New York City, I did a podcast you can go back and listen to on our HB 7030, I think it's what it, don't quote me, that we are going to continue to have folks come into Miami. We're going to continue to have folks come into Miami. That new law signed by the governor states that no longer, as of October 1st, sales tax will be charged on commercial rents. So it's going to make Miami even more affordable and more attractive. And New York might be hiring a socialist as a mayor who wants to socialize food and other resources. And that's probably going to start a new wave of, I see a typo here, apologize about that, start a new wave of folks leaving the city. Now, why aren't they here already? I've been told by some brokers who are working these towers in downtown in Brickell, we don't have quality space. We don't have large blocks of quality space. And so that's why we're going to talk next about some of the newer projects, because when these projects hit the market, say within 3 years, probably going to see another wave of new to market tenants coming out of New York City, New Jersey, the Northeast in general. Okay. Let me take us to the next story, which is we're just going to take a look at some of the new towers that are slated for the downtown Brickell Avenue market. Let's start off with this one. And this is the new Waldorf Astoria. This is near and dear to my heart. I'll explain why. So the Waldorf Astoria is going to be South Florida's tallest building. Did you get that? It seems like every time someone builds, they're pushing the barometer as to what is the tallest building. This is going to be the tallest building at 1,049 feet and 100 stories. Okay, it's currently at the 32nd floor, so they're making waves. And if you haven't driven by and seen this, it's really unique. It's kind of offset Rubik's Cube boxes is what it looks like, and very similar to a building that I've seen in New York. All right, the completion date is slated for 2008, and yeah, I'm reading from the South Florida Business Journal here, and it's located at 330 Biscayne Boulevard. Why is that near and dear to my heart? When I broke into commercial real estate, graduated college, and yes, I still believe college is important for certain industries, and maybe not others, but I was hired by a local developer after I got my degree, and I'll go, if you want, leave a comment of why I think college can still matter, even though it's kind of not in vogue right now. But I was hired by a local developer, and within a year or two of getting my license, I became the head leasing agent for this office developer. 330 Biscayne Boulevard was an 11-story, 117,000, I think 944. I don't know why numbers sticking in my head, but they do. Office building. And that was one of my first assignments. And it sat on almost an entire city block. And later, Alan Morris sold it, I want to say for about $17 million, and it was immediately flipped for about $34 million. And now here it is, building the tallest building in Miami. So this building really launched the start of my commercial real estate office leasing career, and it'll always be near and dear. I've got some more stories. I'm sure a lot of you folks in the commercial real estate industry, all of us touched this site and this building and have war stories about this building. But this is what's coming: 387 condos, 205 hotel rooms, and it will be managed by Hilton Management Services. There'll be a signature restaurant, another 3-meal restaurant, plus 3,000 square feet of retail on the ground floor. Just a beautiful skyline defining. Yeah, this what you can see from here is you can see this is Biscayne Boulevard. Over here you see the port of Miami, and you can see Miami Beach. It's going to be quite the project, and can't wait till that's completed. It's well underway. It's coming, and it's going to redefine the downtown Miami skyline. So you can go to online, just Google Waldorf. There it is. Now you can see, I mean, 1,049 feet, just how much it towers over anything else in the skyline. It's nearly twice the size of everything, but it's not going to be alone for a while because plans are in place. The next story, an 80-story tower is slated for Brickell. And this is an affiliate of Prosper Group. They have filed plans for 80-story condo and hotel tower at 1040 South Miami Avenue. Having more stories about this area because Alan Morris Company, the developer I was mentioning that I started with, they were all over this area. They own most of this area. And so I've got stories about this market as well. But this is what's coming. 80 stories, 948. So not quite 1,049 feet, 100 feet smaller, 300 residences, 100 hotel rooms, over 1 million square feet, rooftop pool, gym, architects are ODP. And anyway, it's going to be another defining moment for skyline moment for the Miami market. So just Google prospergroup.com and you'll see just what is coming. Again, now this is more of an infill. This isn't directly on the bay. It's kind of, as you see from this photo here, kind of maybe even boxed in a little bit. But once you get to the upper floors, I'm sure it's going to be beautiful. Now, there are two. Those are resi, condos, hotels. There are two projects that are specific office developments that are underway. First one I want to talk about and show you is Citadel. And they've already unveiled their plan for 1,032 square foot super tall tower at 1201 Brickell Bay Drive. Folks, this was the last piece on the water, 2.5 acres that they bought for over $330 or so million. And Citadel relocating out of Chicago, they purchased 1221 Brickell. They've got offices at 830 Brickell and 1221. But this is where they're going to move their headquarters. They're going to anchor this. So this one is going to be office primarily. Property is approximately 4.17 acres. Wow, they must have expanded because it was 2.5 when they bought it. The property at 1201 is located on Brickell Bay. Yeah. Let's get into the details here. As you can see, this is right on the water, and here are all the plans. All right, it's going to feature 1.29 million square feet of premium office space, 212 luxurious hotel rooms, okay? Fitness club, grand ballroom, conference event spaces, and so forth, okay? Now, 54 stories tower means it's probably going to be built as a pedestal with some garage because it's 1,000 and some odd square feet, 54 floors. So some of it's going to be parking, some of it's going to be hotel. But here it is, again, another skyline defining tower. Just for scale, 1.29 is going to put it right just north of Southeast Financial Center, which is about 1.15 in terms of the largest commercial office building in the market. I think the largest in Brickell right now is still 700 Brickell, and they're probably just under 700,000 square feet. So your largest office towers are really in downtown Miami. In fact, I have a list here since we're on it, and this might be just a feature standalone podcast, but here are the the largest current office buildings in South Florida, not just Miami, but the top 7 of them are all in Miami, and it's led off by Southeast Financial, 1.23 million, okay, 1.23. So when Citadel develops 1.29, they'll be the largest. Right now it's Southeast Financial, One Biscayne Tower, 982,000 square feet. Citigroup, Miami Center, 201 South Biscayne, 802,000. Wells Fargo Center, 333 Avenue of America, again in downtown, 752. So Brickell doesn't hit until number 5 in terms of the tallest buildings in the South Florida market. The first 4 are all downtown Miami. 701 Brickell at number 5 comes in at 685,000 feet, then followed by 830 Brickell, which is the latest building built in Brickell, 664. And number 7, you've got Brickell World Plaza at 600 Brickell Avenue, 655,000. That's your top 7 tallest largest office buildings by square footage in South Florida. At number 8, you get offices at 6,600 in Boca Raton, and that's 650,000. So we've got this project, Citadel, that's going to go right to the top and push everybody else a little bit down. And this is what I'm told, that the New York firms, wealth funds, large groups, big tech, they're all waiting for projects like this to go further along before they announce they're coming to Miami. This is what they're looking for, and I have to believe Citadel, and followed by this next one, Banco Santander, Santander Tower. This is why they're building. It's not just that they have anchor tenants. So in Citadel's case, they're going to anchor. They're going to probably take 25% of this building. Santander's also going to take 250,000 feet of their beautiful tower. So they're going to anchor this. That's how they're getting their financing in place. That's why they're breaking ground. But they also have to know that there's pent-up demand to backfill the rest of this. That's why they're building these scales. But this is the other one, 1401 Brickell Avenue. 1401 Brickell Avenue is Santander Tower. And again, beautiful Spanish design, even the red color in the top. I love it. It's unique. And this is a beautiful corner of Brickell Avenue. This is kind of the southern district of Brickell Avenue, where the commercial office towers end, and south of 14th, the residential towers begin. So this is going to define and anchor this little place. It's going to be LEED Platinum 40-story office building, 612,000 square feet. It's going to be designed by Bernardi plus Pescard Arquitectos. Okay, they must be from Spain, is my guess. Santander Bank will anchor this. It's going to be 778 feet. So look at that. It's a small building, right? In light of everything else that's being built. So it says Santander are planning to feature 107,000 square feet of food and beverage space. That's a lot. That's a what's that? 15% or almost 20% of the project is going to be food and beverage space, casual and fine dining experiences, urban club on the top podium, outdoor amenity space for tenant use, and so forth. So it's a beautiful design. I like that they incorporated some green, some balcony. I love what they're doing at the top. It's different. I can't wait for this one to come up. It's a 2.2 acre site. I have touched these guys over and over through the years. 1401 Brickell, again, near and dear to me. When I broke into the business, Banco Santander was one of our tenants at 1000 Brickell Avenue. They moved out of 2 floors and bought 1401 Brickell and renovated, and they have been there since the 90s. I'd say the mid-90s when they bought it and renovated, and it's been a great value Class B space for tenants in the market. Well, they stopped leasing about 2 years ago, year and a half ago, and now they're going to tear the building down and build their new tower. So who would have known back then? By the way, we backfilled their space with the consulate office for Trinidad and Tobago, and then I believe Rag and Cassis took one of the other floors. So that's how we backfilled Banco Santander. It might have been Banco Union. Actually, no, I take it back. It was Banco Union, a Venezuelan bank that unfortunately got closed under Operation Casablanca, I think it was, in the 90s, and the consulate offices of Trinidad and Tobago. So here's some, again, beautiful pictures. Now, listen, folks, that's what I'm saying. Come back to Miami in 5 years, and you're not gonna recognize the skyline again. We've got 3 towers over 1,000 square feet or near 1,000 square feet and over, and this beautiful one on the 14th. And that's just the ones that I believe are coming and happening. There are others that are en route. All right, look, let's move on to the next story, because Miami, it looks like it's going to be one of the kind of experimental markets when it comes to air taxis. Now, see, you realize why. I mean, there's going to be a time in Miami where you may not have to ever touch the street. You might be able to go from the top of one tower to another and to another and enjoy. So here we have a couple of options here. Wisk establishes Miami as an early market for U.S. air taxi operations. New agreements with MIA, Miami International Airport, which we'll talk in a little bit, and the University of Miami will bring safe, autonomous flights to South Florida. Wisk Aero, a leading advanced air mobility company and developer of the first all-electric self-flying air taxi in the U.S., announced signing of 2 memorandums of understanding, okay? So what are they going to bring? They will provide technical guidance for vertiport needs for autonomous operations. Okay, it's coming. It looks like it's coming. I was hoping to see more pictures here, but Boeing owned air taxi company to launch in Miami. So we have another one. We got Wisk. We've got, okay, that is Wisk Aero. Okay, the developer of all-electric self-flying taxi chose Miami as one of its key launch markets. I could be wrong, but I think Lake Nona is another one in Orlando. If you don't know Lake Nona in Orlando, I've got a lot of research in there. I've had a lot of clients look at Lake Nona. Send us a note, but you need to know about Lake Nona. It's going to be one of the technologically most advanced cities in the world. It already is, but I think that's another place where you see these air taxis. In fact, Lake Nona already has autonomous bus system. Yeah, you get in a car that's no one's driving it, and you can get around Lake Nona this way. But let's see if we can pick up any more information. Let me give my client, and I'll call you back. Miami area will join Houston, Los Angeles, and Brisbane, Australia as the early launch markets for the company. They've signed agreements, and through Wisk, they're going to provide transportation through the air. So would you ride an autonomous okay, let's decline that. There you go. Would you get into an autonomous air taxi and fly to your destination? We'll see. We'll see. But it looks like it's coming. Now, let's lastly end with the Port of Miami. And much has been written lately about the impact of the Port of Miami, including the airport and seaport. Major boost to the economy shouldn't be a surprise. Let me just give you some quick stats here about the Miami International Airport. Their impact reached a record $181 billion statewide. Recently, they now support over 842,703 jobs, reaffirming its vital role as one of Florida's largest, most powerful economic enrichers, or I would say engines there. Okay, this is from 2024. The Miami and Port of Miami now combined for economic impact of more than $242 billion. So if 181 is coming from the airport, that's another $60 billion is coming from the Port of Miami. 1.2 million direct, indirect, induced, and related jobs come from both ports. Now, I've got some stats here that show you that, let's see here. All right. Miami-Dade earmarked $9 billion for capital improvements plan for the Miami International Airport to modernize MIA's aging infrastructure and future-proof it, which if you've been to the Miami airport, you realize that it's much needed, right? Accommodate more than 50 million passengers and 2.8 million tons of cargo. You know, most of us have touched the Miami airport via the visitors, right? We fly in and out. The international travel, just as big or bigger is the cargo that's coming from South America, Central America, in and out of that Miami airport in the Caribbean. The upgrade, the $9 billion project, will include construction of new vertically integrated cargo community project, 4-story, 800,000 square foot facility, increase the airport's cargo capacity another 50%, adding an extra 2 million tons annually. So I don't know how that will hit. I'll have to ask some of my industrial brokers when that's done. You know, it's 800,000 feet. It doesn't necessarily move the radar that much, but it will. There's some projects that folks will probably prefer to be right there at the airport. All right, here are some stats. 3 million tons of cargo transported through Miami International Airport in 2024. 700,000 direct or indirect related jobs at the airport. 61 billion Miami's Port of Miami's economic impact in the region. 26.5 billion economic activity generated by Port Everglades in 2023. So you said Port Everglades. I thought we were talking about Port of Miami. You go 20 miles north, 25 miles north, maybe 19, and you hit Port Everglades. Fort Lauderdale's port, they're contributing $26.5 billion. 668,500 people employed in trade, transportation, utility sector, which includes trade, logistics, industry. So there you have it. So you could imagine how COVID and the supply chain breakup with the lockdowns hammered Miami and South Florida almost more than any city, Los Angeles being the other one, because of the impact. But Miami came back stronger than ever, and I think that's what the report is. And really, what I want you to digest from this podcast is look at all that's happening in Miami. Look where rates are. I mean, Miami has become a premier city, really second to none at this point. And depending, again, how New York politics go, we may move to the number one spot if we're not there already. So very exciting times to be in commercial real estate in Miami. We talked a lot about Miami. If there's anything that we touched on that you'd like to further explore, please connect with us. I've got our contact information right here. There's a couple of ways you can connect with us. Obviously, our commercial real estate firm, Blue Box. There's our contact information. Our offices are in North Miami, but we'll be wherever our clients need us to be. If you want to explore commercial real estate further, I encourage you, get a copy of the commercial real estate book on office leasing at don'tsignthelease.com/book. And don't forget to continue checking us out and subscribe to at commercial real estate at CRE Help, our commercial real estate talk podcast on YouTube. Thank you for tuning in. God bless you. Stay strong. Remember, Proverbs 20:18, plans are established by counsel, by wise counsel, wage war. God bless. Good day.